Welcome to the Invested Dads Podcast, simplifying financial topics so that you can take action and make your financial situation better. Helping you to understand the current world of financial planning and investments, here are your hosts, Josh Robb and Austin Wilson.
Call me maybe. Hey, I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe.
Now it's going to be in my head. Great. Now it's stuck in my head.
Welcome. All right. Hey. Welcome back to the Invested Dads Podcast. Thanks for listening in. Today, we are going to be talking about the economics and the sheer size of the Buper Sowl. Do I need to say that? Can I just say Super Bowl? Let's call it the big game. Okay. Here come the NFL lawyers now.
All right. Yeah. So first of all, we want to talk about this predictions for the big game. So in our 2020 bold predictions, we made some very bold predictions that turned out to be way off.
I think they were a little too bold.
Yes. So you boldly predicted that the Patriots would win.
I did.
And I, to save relationships within our house, said at least they'd be in the final game because my wife's a huge fan.
Wise man.
And it turns out the Patriots, this was not their year. And so they are
Sorry,
out.
Steph.
So we have to redo our predictions for that. For now that they've determined, we've at least got a 50-50 shot to get it right. So the two teams playing are the Chiefs and the 49ers. Austin, where are you at?
Yeah, I actually caught a few minutes of the Chiefs game last weekend, and I like what they got going on. So I predict the Chiefs will win 31-24 over the Niners. I did almost say Patriots just because I'm so used to them still being there, but I really do think Chiefs probably going to win that one. I think Tyreek Hill is very, very fast, and he had like 2 touchdowns in that AFC Championship game, I think. So I'm going to say he's freaky fast like Jimmy John's, and so good luck, San Francisco secondary.
All right. For me, I think that I've always been a fan of the 49ers. Steve Young, growing up, that was who I loved watching. He had Jerry Rice. He had awesome receivers. It was fun to watch.
Gio.
Yep. Terrell Owens was there for a little while. So it was a good time. So I was a 49ers fan as a kid growing up, especially during the time period when the Browns left, so there really wasn't much to root for in this area. Anyways, so 49ers. I'm going just following my heart as a kid, rooting for the 49ers.
What is your score prediction?
Score prediction. So
Did I say one?
No, you did not.
Oh, I'm going to after you're
You got
done.
one? I'll go first. All right. Score prediction. I think I'm going to go with 32 for the 49ers to 28. And I think that's going to be the final
4-point spread. That's a rare bird.
That's right. You know, because you got those betting things, and you got to go one above that field goal. That's always how they do it.
I'm saying Chiefs 31-24. So I think both of them get field goals, but but only one.
All right. So we'll see how that works out. No prizes to the winner because we're both just on our second guesses of the year already.
We don't win anything. We've already lost.
So this game, why is it so important, Austin? What's the big deal?
For sure. It's definitely the biggest event in the U.S. that's televised each year. There's a lot of traditions around the game, and it's watched by nearly everyone in the U.S. It's the biggest game of the largest revenue professional sports league in the U.S., that being the NFL. It's also just dang good TV, whether you want to actually watch the game, because it's going to be a good game usually, or if you want to see the best of the best of the best of the TV ads that are put together every year.
So you know how some now with the TV subscriptions and your online streaming services, you can skip commercials? Do you think they're going to come out with technology for this game where you can skip the game and just watch commercials?
I bet you could.
You reverse it just for this one.
You just fast forward 30 seconds
through
the game.
Commercials. Yep.
So, Josh, why would a marketing person care when they start thinking about the Super Bowl? Like, what kind of business impact would this have to them?
Yeah, so you mentioned the commercials, and that's really where, when you think of the marketing, that's the big piece. So if we look at last year, there was a CNBC article that we'll link in the show notes. Last year, for a 30-second ad, it cost about $5.25 million. So that's a lot of money for 30 seconds on the TV.
So are you saying that listeners can't expect to see an Invested Dads Super Bowl ad anytime soon?
You know, with all those T-shirts we're giving away to subscribers, I think our budget's kind of shot on that right now.
It's a chunk of change for 30 seconds, though.
But the idea there is not only are you getting probably the largest one single time of eyeballs watching your ad, but you're also probably going to spend some good money to make a good ad, and then you'll use that later on. You see a lot of repeats of those
True.
ads throughout, and you think back to years ago when like Budweiser, some of them, Miller Lite, they were doing series of ads. They kind of had a story almost progress through, and you kind of had that either start or end with the Super Bowl. So people tuned in to kind of figure out what was going on or catch through that.
Up quick. If you're taking out like 4 or 5 Super Bowl ads, woo!
Yep. And then obviously you have the sponsors and the more that are overall, participating more than just a commercial, but they're mentioned throughout the broadcast, so there's a little more money involved. But that's the whole goal, is like you want to be seen, and if you're a new company with some cash, that's a good way to get seen. A lot of small companies kind of use that as a launching point to get their name out there.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bang for your buck argument. Like if you want to, yes, it's going to be a lot of bucks spent, but if you want to have the biggest impact you can in one commercial, that's really the only option you've got.
Yep. And, a lot of these ads are purchased in advance, and so they may not even know who's going to be in the game. And so if they're, depending on where they're at in the U.S., they may not have the teams that have the market where they want to be, or if they're lesser-known teams playing in the Super Bowl, they might not see quite as much ad results from their commercials.
True. And not to mention, there's definitely some big money involved when you start looking at the players and the coaches that are involved with actually being in the big game. So bonuses for coaches and players, I think it was last year, according to CNBC, the winning team players made $118,000 just from being in the Super Bowl, or from winning the Super Bowl, while the losing team made $59,000. And that's not bad money for a weekend. And then if you include all the playoff games going into that actual finale, the players made $83,000 just for the playoffs leading into it. So totals of $201,000 and $142,000 for those teams that have made it that far. So that's a lot of money.
Yeah, and that's also on top of if they had anything negotiated in their own contract for bonuses or anything to pay out if they help them get that way.
So needless to say, lots of money changing hands if your team made it that far, whether they win or they lose. But overall, I think that statistics for pro players and their spending habits are pretty poor and over a long term. And I think that'd be something that we could totally have a whole nother episode out about, specifically looking at like people who get lump sums, whether that be from making millions of dollars a year as a sports player, or whether that be winning the lottery or whatever. Those habits tend to be pretty bad, and the bankruptcy rates and things like that are pretty high. So my advice to the sports players who might be in the Super Bowl, work with a financial planner. They can help you kind of make sure you don't go buy 2 Lamborghinis from your big season.
Well, you need the set.
It's a matching pair. So, yeah, I think that would be a very, very good thing to do.
Yeah, and so, every year the Super Bowl changes locations, which is always fun and exciting, going to new cities, and they kind of highlight where they're at. So let's talk about the economic impact going to each local city. So the Business Insider had an article that we'll link in the show notes, but they stated that the committees in the NFL, so the committees being the city's committees that are put together to bid for or try to win the Super Bowl at their location. They claim that the game can spur somewhere between $300 and $500 million of spending in the host city. So, for example, in 2018, Minnesota's host committee reported that the Super Bowl number 52 brought in $450 million to its half of the Twin Cities. And so that's great, but then an economist, Matheson, he ran some numbers, and this is in the same article. He found that the Super Bowl brings in between 30 and 130 million, which is,
it's a big difference.
A lot less than they're claiming. It's still a good chunk of money, but it's a lot less. And really that came down to, in his opinion, there were some issues that on how they counted the numbers and what they were counting factored in. So when we kind of look back, hosting the game is a big deal. And so if we look back, the 7 NFL stadiums that were most recently constructed between 2006 and 2017, by the end of this Super Bowl, all of those will have hosted a game. And so the average taxpayer contributes about $250 million to the stadium construction. So if, like the NFL claims, there's $300 to $500 million, then you make up that taxpayer thing.
So that might not be the average taxpayer, but the average group of
Yes.
taxpayers.
So,
that would be
yes.
a very big
No,
bill.
Yeah. So the average taxpayer's contribution as that city or as
Right.
that tax base pays $250 million. Yep. Thank you.
So
That's a big chunk.
why is there that difference between the economist and what the cities and the committees are claiming for why those numbers are different there?
Yeah, so the first is what they call the substitution effect, which is where a consumer was going to spend money on one thing, but they spend it on something different. So in other words, having the game in your city, you may have been going to go buy theater tickets or gone and done something that spent money, but instead you spent it on that event.
So you can really only claim the net.
Yes. Yeah. So the difference would just be how much more did you spend than you would have spent on that weekend.
Right.
So if you live in town and you eat out every weekend, okay, you still ate out, but you ate out at a different spot or there was a different cost involved. The second is the crowding effect, which is when crowds associated with a sporting event displace other crowds that would normally be there. So if I'm going to a city to just visit as a tourist, I may not choose that weekend to go because it's going to be crowded by all the sports fans that are there. And so although I would have booked a hotel and spent money there, I'm just being replaced by another person.
Right.
And so there's not, in a sense, let's say you have a large city and there's, 1 million visitors in a month. And then when you host the game, there's 1.2 million in that month. Okay, you didn't get 1.2 million people there because of the game. You got an extra 200,000 there. So, there's you have to do this substitution and crowd effect to figure it out. And then the last one is leakage. And that one sounds weird.
It sounds gross.
It does. But it's the concept of where the money goes. And so leakage being, okay, if a hotel says, we were able to increase our hotel costs by 25%, we charge 25% more to book a hotel during that weekend. Okay, that's great. Where did that money go?
Pockets.
Back to the shareholders,
Yep.
right? And so the city and the taxpayers in there did not see that. So there's really, the money doesn't flow back through. It's
Right.
leaked out and it ends up in other people's pockets. And so
Gets dispersed.
the idea there in the end is, if I have a hotel and on most weekends during this time of the year, I'm 70% full, and then we're booked up. Now we're 100% full. I don't get to count all that revenue because I would have been 70% full anyways. And so that additional 30% is where all these factors are counting in. And so the idea there is, if you really want to boost it, you just count everything and say, look at all this revenue. And it's true. All that revenue did come in. They're not making up numbers, but some of that would have already been there. And that's what the argument is how much added value is coming into the city. Arguably, sometimes building a new stadium may not be worth it.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
So I don't anticipate an NFL stadium being built in Findlay, Ohio, because I don't think that would be worth it. We'll see.
No.
All right, so it's everyone's favorite time of the week. It's the dad joke of the week. Josh, are you ready? Josh, I think you are ready.
I'm taking a drink, so I'm not
Gotta
going to spit
prepare-
anything out
please.
when you tell it to me. So I
Drink
need to
that before.
swallow
This
and be ready to
is-
go. Okay.
This is a doozy. I forget where I saw this. I think it was in it was like a kid's book or something like that. So it's kid approved.
Kid approved.
What has 4 wheels and flies?
Oh, I heard this one. I love it. I'm not going to say the answer, though, because I want to see your face.
know
I
it's
want to see your
a
face.
garbage truck.
That's right. I'll love it.
See, that's a classic. That's just like the what's black and white and red all over.
That could be a lot of answers.
It
It's
really
the newspaper.
could. I know. There's something about a penguin.
A
That's
penguin, a sunburn.
gross.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's all the different ones.
So that is the dad joke of the week, and we are going to get back because there are some downsides to the economy when you look at when a Super Bowl occurs, and one of those is lost productivity. So
I don't know. The players look like they're working really hard.
They do. Yeah, they're probably napping on Mondays after that game. But generally speaking, the majority of U.S. workers are going to be staying up to watch the game, which can go extremely late to like 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
It's a long 4+ hour event now with all the commercials and all the
Exactly.
breaks and everything.
So, being that you're going to be at your Super Bowl party, you're going to be loaded down with a bunch of tater tots and pigs in a blanket,
Making me hungry.
donuts probably if you're an invested dad.
Nachos and cheese.
So good. I really am into Super Bowls because of the food.
Just the food.
At my wife's families, we get together every year and we have Super Bowl Sundays
Yeah.
It's ice cream.
Sundays. Yeah.
with the AE.
Yeah.
And it's like a highlight.
that sounds good.
So,
Except for I can't have ice cream, but it sounds amazing.
Josh, you can have a Super Bowl sorbet.
That's right.
So yes, lost productivity. So you're staying up late, you're watching the game, Monday morning comes around, you're not going to be as productive at work because A, you're going to be thinking about the game, talking about the game with your coworkers, but B, you could be just really tired. And actually, according to an article by MarketWatch, last year an estimated 17 million employees missed work the next day after the Super Bowl. That's about 10% of the U.S. workforce that they were measuring in that study, and that is a lot.
Yep. And I saw that article, and it highlighted, too, in the winning city, it's a little bit higher, surprisingly, because everybody's out celebrating for
I'm sure.
the additional time. So it's, And then, obviously, there's other stuff that goes on there, traffic accidents and all that, that are a result of, late nights and partying. So
I think that it's probably comparable when you look at, like, traffic accident, heart attack statistics. Like, it looks a lot like the daylight savings time the day after that, which... Total sidebar, but I totally think that is ridiculous that we still do that. They did that a long time ago for farmers' time and light and farming, but that's a whole nother topic for another day. But seriously, I really feel like the Super Bowl should be on Saturday night.
Yes.
I think that they would even have better viewership because people wouldn't have to be worrying about getting up and going to work the next day and all of that stuff. And personally, I'm an old man at heart. I don't want to stay up for a game on a Sunday night because I got to get up and go to work. Even if it starts at 6 o'clock or whatever the Super Bowl does, too late for me.
Still late.
So, Super Bowl, NFL, take my request, Saturday night. I know I'm not alone in this. But also, people have a lot invested in the Super Bowl because they make a lot of bets. It's the most betted on single game in America every year. So speaking of betting, there are some strange bets that are being placed around this big game. So there was a radio station article that we linked in the show notes, but online sports books are always offering random Super Bowl prop bets on all the nonsense.
Did you air quote again?
I did air quote.
Yeah.
How do you air quote on a podcast? But all the nonsense and things that don't really matter, like they're not sports statistics around the game. So the site is betonline.ag, which they may get around some legal requirements by using an AG domain, but they already have their lineups on there, and here are a few highlights.
All right, so this one I thought was hilarious. So you can bet on what color the liquid will be that is poured on the winning coach. So if you, obviously at the end of the game, a lot of times they'll pick up that big Gatorade bucket and dump it on the coach. So right now the stats are the one with the highest probability is, and because of all the different colors, they kind of Group. That's a good word. Let's use that word instead. They group these in. So we have. I was looking at the word lime. So loop sounds better to me. So there's the one that has the highest odds is actually lime green or yellow colored Gatorade being dumped on the coach. That has about a 27% of all the votes to it. And then clear water or red and pink are tied with 25%. And then blue or orange is 20%, and then finally purple is 7%, which actually is a very good flavor, I think, is the purple.
What's the blue? I'm a blue Gatorade guy.
My all-time favorite, though, is the Glacier or something. It's a cherry, but it's a white-colored Gatorade.
So you can't stain your shirt.
Oh, man, it's awesome.
Another thing that people are betting on is will announcers Joe Buck or Troy Aikman say Patriots? Patriot being the word there. So, oddly enough, I think this is a bit strange.
Yeah, this one surprised me.
But most 74% of people are betting that they are not going to say the Patriots. And I feel like
I would take that bet.
Being that the Patriots seemingly are always in the game, that people are going to naturally want to slip up and say it. But also, I think they're going to talk about the Patriots at some point in the show anyway.
Yeah, you think so. I mean, even if they're just referencing who they beat through to get here, I mean,
that is a bet.
I would take that bet.
That's a bet I will take all day, and I could go make some popcorn money for that.
Now, here's the most important one. Who will win the Puppy Bowl? And so, Austin's rocking his
Chocolate Lab socks.
So I think he's on Team Rough, but actually Team Fluff has a slight edge with a 58% odds. So
that's what you're going to flip to during the halftime show.
I mean, that is the halftime show in my opinion.
It's the real halftime show. The next question: will 98-year-old Betty White be in a Snickers commercial this year? 71% of people say yes, because Snickers is going to be celebrating the 10th anniversary of the "You're Not You When You're Hungry" campaign, which first aired during Super Bowl 44 in 2010. Betty White was in that one. So, Betty, if you're listening, thanks for being a mainstay on American TV for my entire life, and well before. Mm-hmm. You enjoy that Snickers, girl. You have earned it.
All right. Speaking of commercials, Mr. Peanuts. He's the guy, the little cartoon character that promotes little fancy top hat and everything.
I know. Is he going to become less popular now with
so here's
everyone
the
being
deal.
allergic to peanuts?
Well, here's the deal. And I don't know if you saw this. I saw it online. They actually showed one of the early commercials, and he dies in the commercial. And the hashtag was RI, like rest in peace, RIP, but the P was part of peanuts, so it was rest in peanuts.
They had a hashtag back when they started doing these commercials?
No, I'm saying it just came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so I'm not sure if he actually in that commercial, I think his monocle falls off, but that was the question. So this is a really weird one. If they count that commercial as part of it, what happens? But 57% think that his monocle will come off his eye in a Planters ad during the Super Bowl, which is a weird bet in general.
I'm picturing a Super Bowl commercial from like 1978 with a hashtag, and I can just see some marketing person's like, and we're going to call this the hashtag.
The hashtag.
And then that's when it got
with
started.
the rotary phone.
With the rotary phone. So a really important one is, what color will national anthem singer Demi Lovato's microphone be? So this is kind of moving past the formerly controversial national anthem protests, which seem to be kind of fading out. So focusing on what we can handle right now, that is the microphone color. The favorite is black. So that's pretty standard. You get a pretty normal microphone.
That's like a normal
color.
mic.
That's just
what they have.
Mic right there. Next up, second place is silver or gray.
Which is our color, by the way.
We are using silver microphones as we speak. And in third place is any color, any other color that's not black or silver.
So she
that's
customizes hers with sparkles
I
or anything.
anticipate some rhinestones or something on there.
I don't know her very well. Is that her
I
style?
don't know. Wasn't she a Disney star?
I don't know.
Like, I think Taylor Swift uses those kind of fancy mics all the time. So
wasn't she the one that was married to Ashton Kutcher?
Demi Lovato?
Oh, that's Demi Moore.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's Demi Moore.
All different people.
Yeah, there's so many. You can also bet on the color of Demi's hair. So black is once again the favorite, but blonde is a long shot in second place, and then any other hair is a longer shot after that. So they're really giving you a lot of options.
Does
on what
she
you can
change
bet
her
on
hair
here.
color? See,
Maybe
I don't know any. I should have researched her.
You could totally wig up.
I don't know.
You could start with a red
and just like
and then go to
color
white,
change, have like
and then go to blue. Can you imagine?
Man. Fiber optic hair just changes as she's singing.
Maybe next year.
High notes, it's different color.
As 5G technology comes online, you could change that remotely.
So here's another one. And speaking of like T.O., because this was kind of his big thing back in the day, will any player use a prop during a touchdown celebration?
Like
so
popcorn.
Or like pulling out his little Sharpie pen and, signing things. So, or cell phone, call his mom when he scored a touchdown. So overwhelmingly, 91% say no. So that's a big thought. They think that's been kind of not as popular as it was at one point. But the ball does not count as a prop.
Okay, that was my question.
That was the one thing. Because obviously everybody spikes that and throws it around and spins it and pretends it's a bonfire and warms their hand on it, or whatever they want to do.
So Josh, tell us about the halftime show, the real halftime show, not the Puppy Bowl.
Considering how little I care about music, I'm the best one to talk about this. So, obviously, that is a big popular thing. It's in the news early on when they first announced who is going to be the headline for that. We've had quite a few pretty big stars. Prince years ago, Rolling Stones, Lady Gaga. Last year, Maroon 5. Were you a fan?
Yeah, that was kind of not a great performance.
Yeah, Puppy Bowl was good that year. I'm just going to tell you. It was a good Puppy Bowl that year.
See, that was a good year to flip the channel.
But this year it's Jennifer Lopez, and then Shakira is joining her. And so that's the lineup that they have. And according to an article in sportingnews.com, which we linked in the show notes, the selection of these two Hispanic pop icons was considered to be a very good fit for Miami, because there was some controversy early on in who would join into this. And so I think they ended up with a pretty good lineup for being in Miami and kind of the culture there. That it seems like it'll be a good show, and they're both pretty relevant.
So a question that I think about a lot is, how do some of the things that we like here in the United States compare globally? Because we are, the largest economy in the world and all this stuff, and we have a lot of people, but comparatively speaking, we don't have the majority of people in the world. So let's talk about comparing the Super Bowl to the World Cup.
Yes.
So
football to football.
Football to football, and two very big events, very widely watched events. So how does the Super Bowl compare to the World Cup? Honestly, it kind of doesn't. Football just doesn't have the global following to hold a candle to soccer.
Wait a minute.
Football.
We do those London games every year.
Does that count?
That doesn't get us all over.
They're like, now I'm an NFL fan. I couldn't do a British accent there. I kind of tried. But yeah, it really doesn't really compare in terms of viewership because there's just people in America follow football, American football. And outside of America, there's not a ton, despite the London games that we've been and there's a Mexico game now, too. So it's not quite there yet. But according to Statista, link in the show notes for the article, our big game really isn't so big. So the statistics are pretty eye-opening. So according to FIFA, last year's World Cup final between France and Croatia reached an average live audience of 517 million viewers, with more than 1.1 billion, with a B, people turning in over its 90 minutes, which is a long game for soccer. And pretty much not a lot of stops.
You say it's a long game, but that's 90 minutes and then it's over.
But it's
as opposed to 4 hours
of the football game. It's like 90 minutes
game.
Pretty continuously.
Yeah, it doesn't take breaks or anything.
No
just the halftime
breaks.
in the middle.
There are some commercials.
A lot of times they run it during without stopping the game.
That's true. So the 2018 Super Bowl pales in comparison, having an average viewership of 103 million in the U.S., plus an estimated 50 to 60 million around the world. So the Super Bowl really is 10 to 20 times smaller on a viewership basis than the World Cup. And according to the Washington Times, also thrown in the show notes, the link here, the Super Bowl generates around $620 million of the NFL's total revenue. And that single game helps make the NFL the leading moneymaker among all professional sports league in the U.S. The NFL's total for the full 2017 season was more than $14 billion.
Wow.
So that sounds like a lot of money, right? Well, if you compare that to the World Cup, which lasts only 1 month every 4 years and features only 64 games, its 2018 revenue is estimated to have exceeded $5 billion in that 1 month. So that's more than $78 million generated per World Cup game. So that's a lot of money. So it is kind of not an entirely apples to apples comparison when you're looking at something that happens every 4 years and it's on a global scale to something that happens every year only in the U.S. But pretty big differences there. And as a bonus stat, according to Sports Media Watch, the 2019 College Football National Championship game had 25.6 million viewers, so even significantly smaller.
That surprised me. I'm surprised it's not.
I know. I thought it was going to be closer to the Super Bowl, not quite, but it's quite small.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. That's our special episode about the big game. Hopefully you'll enjoy it this weekend if you're listening to this right when it comes out. Hopefully you enjoyed it if you don't catch this episode till after. So either way, enjoy the game. Always check out our free gift that we have on our website. It's 8 Principles of Timeless Investing. It's free. Check it out on our website at theinvesteddads.com.
And to help us grow this podcast and to just continue to help out lots of people, we need your help. So number one, what you can do is subscribe. We really appreciate you tuning in every week to listen to us. We hope we're helping you out and teaching some things here and there. Number two, if you really enjoy what we're doing here, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That'll really help us to kind of move up the charts and help more people. Number three, email us any ideas for topic ideas or any questions you have to hello@theinvesteddads.com.
Speaking of that, this episode was suggested by Steph in Findlay, Ohio.
That's right. Thank you, Steph, for that suggestion. And finally, if you found this episode, insightful or interesting or even funny, I don't know, just click that share button on your podcast player and share that with one person that you think would kind of get a kick out of it or enjoy listening to it.
And share it just with the one person that will.
Just the one.
In case you missed it, our most recent episode we had coming out was on dividend investing, so check that one out as well if that topic intrigues you. And as always, we'll look forward to talking to you next week.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Invested Dads podcast. This episode has ended, but your journey towards a better financial future doesn't have to. Head over to theinvesteddads.com to access all the links and resources mentioned in today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and we had a positive impact on your life, leave us a review, click subscribe, and don't miss the next episode. Josh Robb and Austin Wilson work for Hicks & Zerker Capital Management. All opinions expressed by Josh, Austin, or any podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Hicks & Zerker Capital Management. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of Hicks & Zerker Capital Management may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast. There is no guarantee that the statements, opinions, or forecasts provided herein will prove to be correct. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Indices are not available for direct investment. Any investor who attempts to mimic the performance of an index would incur fees and expenses which would reduce returns. Securities investing involves risk, including the potential for loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment plan or strategy will be successful.